Ryan,
Order the EPUD Board of Directors Workshop, March 4th. Roll call, Wendy.
Ryan Parker,
Here.
Kurt Achenbacher,
Here.
Patty Chapel.
Here.
Dale Olson,
Here.
Charles Kimball,
Here.
Staff, Kyle Rubin, General Manager.
Wendy McKay,
Mark Raymond.
Alicia Burgess, Kelly Strange,
Doug Darrow.
Jason Rice.
Rob Roder.
Finnish employees maybe, yeah. And I see Sarah online as well.
hello.
Sarah.
There's
And Mitch just joined us, so. And then we've got two employees over here.
Jesse McDonald.
And Jesse and Jake both work out at the landfill, so they're here to take out the presentation.
Good.
And we have some guests.
So, Ron Davis, retired.
You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Good afternoon, I'm Tanguy Largeau with Waga Energy.
Chris Hiller with Waga Energy.
I'm Chad Stokes, Cable Houston.
Tommy Brooks, also with KB.
Thanks all for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Is there any changes to the agenda timeline?
No changes. We're gonna try to do an hour for each of the first two topics. So we'll try to cut off the first one at 4 o'clock and then the second one at 5. It's a little time to hit the remaining two.
Okay. So our first is the presentation by White Energy.
All right. So I'll just introduce it real quick. Do you guys want to move your chairs so you can see? Sure. You guys as well, if you want to, let's see. There's a fair amount of room over here so you can see the screen.
Want us over here?
Yeah, these would be if you want to sit down, that's great. If you want to stand up, that's just fine too. You guys okay?
Yeah.
All right. So just as a little prelude to this, we, as you know, have been running a process for several months now to select a partner at Short Mountain to put a renewable natural gas project online. And after going through that process, we've identified Waga Energy as our preferred partner. Their proposal, I would say, really led the way on pretty much every category that we were evaluating. They have a proven model, as they'll talk about. Their technology is really cutting edge, and they seem to be very, very good to work with. That's been my impression so far. I think you'll find the same thing. So they're here to present, but also answer questions if you have anything that you've been wondering about as we go through this process. I will say kind of current status. We met today to start talking about contracting and how that might play out. We are actively talking about engaging with the county. They're going to be a key partner for us here as well. And we've started that conversation with them, but there's a lot more to come there to move it forward. So this is an introductory presentation, but we have a lot more planned to engage with the county. So with that, I think I will hand it over to, are you both going to be presenting?
Yes.
Okay, great. So feel free to use the time as you see fit.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Is this, oh, it is, okay, great. So I'm Chris and I am leading the development effort for this project for Waga Energy. And I think the first thing that really struck me about this project was that we wanted to honor the stepping into the legacy. The word legacy has really been kind of discussed quite a bit, both from the Waga side as well as from the EPUD side, and just realizing that the relationship has taken a very long time to get from where you are today, or you know, where you started from and where you are today, and for us to come in and partner with you and partner with the county and just try to improve upon the overall attributes of this project for both the local community as well as for Emerald and your members and your customers is really something that we take very seriously. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to say. So thank you for having us.
Put that in so you can see it.
Oh, yeah, great, thanks.
So, yeah, so again, my name is Tanguy Largeau. I'm a French American, you can hear the French accent speaking to it. So Waga Energy is a French company. We were founded 10 years ago in the south of France by the Alps. And then from there, the company grew in different markets in the UK, in Italy, in Spain, and then Canada and the USA. So we founded Waga Energy Inc. in 2019. I was employee number 2 in the organization. Now in North America, we are 60. And so we're building the project coast to coast. And so I'm personally very happy to be here. Actually, when I arrived in the US in 2005, I was based out of Seattle. And I spent all my weekends in Oregon. So it means a lot for me to be back in Oregon. So we invented a technology which we call the Wagabox. This is the gas upgrading technology that's purely focused on upgrading landfill gas into renewable natural gas. So all we do is landfill gas upgrading into RNG. So you're going to hear RNG a lot in this presentation. That stands for renewable natural gas. So the slide here says we have 20 in operation. Well, since that slide was put together, now there are 30. It was fast. But we have 30 of those Wagabox that are currently in operation in Canada, in the USA, in France, and in Spain. And we're building in other markets I was mentioning earlier. And so we're building 18 globally. 12 of those are in the USA. So nearby here, we're building in California. We're building in Texas, in Iowa, in Indiana, in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, and New York. So there's 250 globally. So we're still very interlinked with the mothership in France, where a lot of the engineering is happening. A lot of you'll see our technology is based on a product approach, or everything we will be doing at the Short Mountain landfill will benefit from what's happening elsewhere in the world. It's a high tech type product, and so it requires our engineers always being on the lookout for improving our solutions. So safety is our number one priority. We are operating on landfills, a gas plant, and so making sure everybody comes home at night safely is our top priority. So if you go to the next here, so the business model that we're proposing at Short Mountain is the very same that we've developed in all 30 of our operational projects. So Waga Energy will take care of the development. That's what our team is in charge of. It's making sure that we have sound, strong contracts with our landfill partners, or here with partners as Emerald, with electrical gas interconnection partner, with offtake partners, which are the ones that will be eventually buying the renewable natural gas we'll be producing. We take care of financing. We talk a little bit more through that, but we've had access to financing that allows us to develop and build those facilities. Manufacturing is in-house as well through a network of partners, but it's under our own design. We construct the facility ourselves, but we operate and maintain it ourselves, and then we commercialize the RNG that we are producing.
So this is the project team that we've put together for you. Myself, Chris Hiller, and then obviously you've got Tungi as the commercial lead. Our biogas expert, Theodore, is located in France, and he's in Paris. We have an offtake expert, so we have part of the value proposition and the value of these projects is marketing the gas to viable off-takers. So we have a dedicated department that is working both with public and private entities to ensure that we get the most value out of that gas. Joseph is head of sale or head of safety for us. Every meeting starts with a safety brief. We take safety, as Tungi mentioned, very seriously, especially when it comes to the landfill gas. It is non-odorous, you can't see it, and we want to ensure that our projects are incredibly safe. Finance is headed up by Wendell, our CFO. And our CEO, our North American CEO is Gunnell. Gunnell is also the patent holder for our technology. He is an incredibly brilliant individual and is constantly on the cutting edge of what else can we do with our plants. As you know, as an owner operator of engines, over time, new circumstances present themselves, either through legislation or new policies or new things get pushed down upon you as the operator that you have to constantly be aware of, and having Gannell at the point of trying to tackle all of those issues and find new ways to tap into new revenue streams is very encouraging. So I definitely enjoy having him on the team. Jamal, so it looks like Jermaine, but pronounces it Jamal. He is our project manager lead. He's got a tremendous amount of projects happening right now, and he really makes sure that, you know, essentially all of the project schedules and the deliverables happen on time. And then our manufacturing happens both in the US, in Canada, as well as in France. That's headed up by Nicholas. And then our operations is really keeping an eye on all 30 plants and ensuring that they are performing to their expected uptime as well as all of their performance. So we have dashboards for the performance of all of our plants, both in North America. So we watch all 30 plants in North America, and then at night it transitions over to the European team. So we essentially have 24-hour surveillance happening on all of our facilities. And then we are planning on hiring a field operations person to be a full-time employee who would be dedicated to this facility. Currently, we're working, our strategic partners are Northwest Natural and Northwest Pipeline. We're in discussions with both who would be the best avenue to accept our gas. Obviously, our electrical interconnection is a great partner in Emerald. And then permitting with SCS is, you know, Jason's introduced us to SCS, and we're excited to work with them. They seem like they have a tremendous amount of knowledge about the landfill, so that's a great partner. Construction, we have typically we have 3 major scopes that we hire out for, which is electrical, civil work, and mechanical. So right now we've identified the potential of working with Stellar J, but you know, we're going to be talking to local contractors in the area and selecting the most qualified one. And then engineering, again, you know, SCS will be helping us hopefully with the permitting. You know, we're in negotiations or discussions with them anyways, but we would love to work with them. And then our offtake partners, which is currently an ongoing discussion. So that's kind of who you're working with in a nutshell.
Yeah. We've talked about the county being obviously an integral part of the whole thing too.
Yes, yes. So the executive summary, what we're proposing is a Wagga Box 1500 SCFM, so it can handle 1500 SCFM of flow. Its footprint is less than an acre. Our proprietary technology, and the reason that it's a great use for landfill gas is because we can handle up to 30% nitrogen. So as the landfill fluctuates its gas constituency over time, we can guarantee a 95% availability, an uptime guarantee, no matter what the gas is that's coming into our facility. We are also, as part of our value proposition, really committed to investing into the county's landfill. So we provided a $600,000 upfront payment to put in new wells, add loci controls, really help boost the flows at the landfill. And in addition to that, we are carrying another $400,000 per year over the 20-year term to maintain and ensure that that gas collection system is happening well and everyone's satisfied. There's an 18 to 22 month project schedule from when the gas rights get assigned to us. So depending on how long those negotiations take, we anticipate an 18 to 22 month timeline. And then the last one is, the project for compliance and helping with the environmental regulations for Lane County is a big part for them, is removing the engines which are creating environmental exhaust emissions, and replacing it with something that sequesters it.
And then I'll just double down on what they said about the investments. The capture rate is currently anywhere between 65 and 70%. With some of the investments they're proposing, the controls especially, we're talking numbers north of 80% potentially, which is a real big environmental win, in addition to getting rid of our engine emissions out there. So it's a very nice package when it comes to emissions control.
Big piece.
That's okay. I'll stand up for a minute. We're gonna get a little bit technical, not too much. So the Wagabox technology is basically a process of removal. So we're going from a highly polluted gas, right, methane gas, into a almost pure gas. So you go from a 50%-ish methane gas to a 98-99% pure methane gas. So the challenge we are facing is removing all these impurities. So you have 50% methane in landfill gas, you have about 35 to 40% carbon dioxide, and the rest are air gases, nitrogen, oxygen, and other pollutants. Hundreds, if not thousands, of volatile organic compounds or pollutants that are linked to the type of waste you are receiving in the landfill. So a highly complex gas. And so what the industry has been doing in the past was to use conventional oil and gas technology to try to tackle a very complex gas, and quite frankly, it didn't work. And so what we set out to do when we patented this technology, invented the technology and then patented it, was to try to have a product approach in building facilities of all size and being able to adapt with the landfill life and the landfill gas constituents over time. So if you look at landfill gas coming into our facility, and we'll look at a real facility after, but the schematics help a little bit here. So landfill gas is coming in. The first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing sulfur, so hydrogen sulfides. Very corrosive. It's a very corrosive constituent that we cannot let into our facility. Right now, in the engines, you don't have H2S removal because you can actually destroy it during the combustion. We cannot. This will harm our facility. So we'll have filters, basically, that are removing H2S. Then we are compressing the gas. We're removing what we call VOC, volatile organic compounds. So hundreds, if not thousands of pollutants that needs to be removed and not in order not to harm our equipment downstream. So right now we basically remove H2S and VOC. As we get into this stage here, we're going to be removing carbon dioxide using membrane. Membranes, they are like very long cylinders made of thousands of spaghettis with a small hole in the middle. The gas flows through it, and then methane is separated from carbon dioxide. It's a very simple, very reliable technology used by pretty much every upgrading technology out there to separate carbon dioxide from methane. After the membrane, the membrane, if you followed along with me, we've left with methane, nitrogen, and oxygen. And this is where most technologies are struggling with separating these molecules that are very similar size, a very similar shape as well. So this this part of the technology is really the innovation. We call it a cold box. So it's cryogenic distillation at low pressure. So what we are doing is we're going to be, as we're coming into the column, we're going to be expanding the gas, and the methane will become liquid. Nitrogen and oxygen will stay gaseous, will stay in vapor phase, and will be separated from the methane. We recover the methane, we actually regasify it. So we recover the cold from the methane, and we exchange it in a heat exchanger with the feed gas coming in. So it's a very highly efficient, highly efficient equipment in order to separate methane from nitrogen and oxygen. One question you may ask yourself right now is to say, if you think about cryogenic distillation, everybody thinks it's extremely energy intensive. It is not, because it's in a sealed vacuum environment, and we actually recovering the energy, the cold, on the way out in order to cool down the feed gas on the way in. So there's really no loss of energy, very minimal loss of energy. And on the back end, so we are recovering natural gas, renewable natural gas in vapor form, which we are compressing and sending to the local distribution pipeline, Northwest Natural in this case. So why choosing this technology makes most sense is in this graph here, you see the composition or the constituent of nitrogen in the inlet landfill gas compared to the efficiency, to the efficacy of the technology, the methane recovery rate, which dictates how efficient is this technology. And you can see that with our technology, regardless of the content of nitrogen, all the way up in this chart to 22%, our recovery efficiency is north of 90%, right? Whereas competing technology, such as the one you've looked at during the RFP process, namely PSA, pressure swing adsorption, which is one of the most common upgrading technology, you see that the recovery efficiency drops here. And so when the recovery efficiency drops, that means the production of renewable natural gas drops, that means the revenue drops, that means your royalty drops, right? So that's why it matters so much to have a technology which is highly flexible in terms of the gas quality it can accept. And yeah, that's good. So doing just a quick comparison using an EPA tool, this is your current gas quality at the Short Mountain landfill. 49% methane. It's actually much more now. We saw today it's actually also 50%. Wow. And so you see at a flow rate of 1250, which is where you are right now, right? Where we are as far as the flow at the Short Mountain landfill. If you loosen up a little bit the gas composition and namely the methane concentration, you're going to be able to recover, to go from 1200 cubic feet a minute of landfill gas to 1500 cubic feet a minute of landfill gas. That is basically increasing the energy recovery on the gas collection system from 37 to 44. So we're gaining 7 MMBTU an hour inlet. And that means we're able to generate more revenue. That means we're able to generate more revenue.
So a little bit about your project and site. As we discussed, the Wagga Box 1500 is 3/4 of an acre in size. Right now, we're in discussions of either putting it over the existing engine plant or finding a new location on site that is agreeable to Lane County. And then we have an interconnection of 2.1 miles to Northwest Natural. We're in discussions with Northwest Natural as to how best to go about that. And we would be interconnecting with Emerald, roughly a 480 volt service at 2,000 amps.
Is the line, the red line to natural gas?
Yes.
And that's just a perspective, that's probably 2 megawatt peak load, would likely operate south of that, but that's kind of the size of the load that would be out there.
Here's our facility in operation. So this facility is actually in operation in New York. So just kind of running through this, as Tungi was describing, step number one, removing the H2S. We use activated carbon, so those vessels are essentially absorbing the H2S and then switching between one vessel and the other vessel so that we can maintain or remove the spent media. And then step two is the volatile organic compounds. We're removing that, and then after we go to step three in the membrane chamber, where we are separating out the CO2, and we have final CO2 polishing happening here prior to going into our cryogenic distillation chamber. It's essential for us to remove all CO2. Essentially, CO2 cannot enter the cryogenic chamber. It's a destructive gas to that process. And then we have sales gas compression happening, and then basically it gets injected into the pipeline. So outside of just our operating plant, we have our ancillary pieces of equipment. So we have this is a thermal oxidizer. So all gases that are not methane essentially get routed to the thermal oxidizer to be distinguished properly and safely. And then we have a backup flare. So this is in the event that that there's an unexpected or expected maintenance and what's that?
Too much extra gas.
Yeah, and so if there's gas in our process, and we have a maintenance, then we need a way to safely extinguish that gas. So that's what that is, and that backup flare runs, 0.5% a year or so. Then we have our electrical room, which will be where we connect to EPUD. And finally, our gas interconnection in this slide is adjacent to our facility. So that's it for that. Here's kind of a breakdown of the time frame of the project. So you can see how long each one of the steps takes for engineering, permitting, fabrication. And then when we get on site for civil work and installation is actually a very short amount of time in site. So these projects are primarily, a lot of work goes into the planning, permitting, and and ensuring that, the interconnects and everything just kind of lines up for when we're ready to deploy.
Yeah. And so those are some of our references in North America. So out of the 50 or so plants that are either in operation or in construction. So some noticeable GFL Mala Ridge, which is in Wisconsin, is roughly of the same size as the one we envision building in at Short Mountain. Same here, another 2,000 SCFM in Quebec. So our facility, our technology scales down really well to smaller sites, 170 SCFM in this case. That's typically the size we see in Europe. Here in the USA, it's really not economical to do so. So that's why we focused on kind of the standard size for the US, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 3,000 inlet capacity. This facility you just saw that Chris presented in New York. And so here are all the other facility that we're building. Those two are Recology sites in close to San Francisco. So there's two facilities, one 3,000 SCFM, one 2,000 SCFM that we're building. Also in Central California, in Wisconsin County, in Bakersfield, 3,000 SCFM we are building there. So again, I'll just echo again what I said earlier about how excited we are to build a project, hopefully soon in Oregon.
Yeah, you guys are gonna start a whole new road for us.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the short intro that we had. If you have any questions.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I have several.
Oh,
The first one is where you are, however, proposing to build a plant where ours is now. And I see it's 9 to 11 months. What happens? We shut our engines off. So we're gonna go 3/4 of a year without, we won't produce anything. You guys won't use the gas. You just, what happens there? Do you just flare it or?
Yeah, well, we talked about it today. I think there's some really good options to be able to run parallel operations for a while. There's some space to the south that looks like it could be advantageous to take advantage of rather than just plopping it on top of our current facility. There's also some potential to move it closer to the pipeline up to closer to I-5. That's obviously the county's call in terms of what they're willing to allow us to do there. But I think worst case scenario, I think we're gonna be able to operate ours in parallel. If that wasn't possible, we always have the flare as a backup. It's just, it's not good for the environment. It's wasted economic opportunity. So that's certainly not our preferred option.
I was thinking where our plant is now, I don't know the county's plans for building the landfill, but they're gonna have to move that. They would have to move that sometime, so it'd be
Yeah.
to advantage.
Yeah,
Maybe to put it,
there's a master plan and Jason knows better than I do what their timing is. And we've been told
Yeah.
70 years before they get to us.
Oh,
Where
okay.
the proposed site would be built out will be beyond the timeline of contracts. 50 years or so would be where the power plant is now, that they would possibly start putting garbage. 80 years is a good while, but yeah, we're still figuring that out, but there are options.
Yeah. And we've expressed our strong desire is to run our engines up to the point of, operation of the RNG facility. So that would be our preference for sure.
Not that Emerald ever loses the ability to provide electricity. Very rare, but do you have any backup? Like, if the power goes out, your plant just shuts down until it's.
there's no trees.
So-
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we typically rely on the local distribution network. So we're gonna need like around a little bit under 2 megawatt. So like having a generator would be a little much. So no, typically that's part of the due diligence is to try to understand what's the uptime of the local, of the network in that area. And then we'll factor that into the economics. That way we have
Where does our feed come in?
It's Crestwell.
Yeah, Crestwell.
Yeah, so it's actually located between two different substations off of two different transmission lines. So we, as I was telling Jason, we could have the opportunity to make some minor improvements in the distribution system to improve the uptime.
Worst case scenario, if we have a big outage, though, you could cease operations and send this to the flare that's out there for some period of time and just decrease the economics.
Yeah, in the model that we provided to you, we assume a 99% uptime for the distribution. That needs to be updated, then we can.
We usually say for a big ice storm or something. Usually,
It's either
pretty good.
okay
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Once you start flaring, you can come and sit in the parking lot here and honk your horn till it's back on.
Very good.
Yeah, yes, that moves you right to the front of them.
I noticed in your proposal of connecting it has something to do with bulk handling systems connection. I wouldn't rely on that real heavily. That's a moving target.
Yeah,
That there's, in my opinion, there's no guarantee that's gonna end up where it's at.
so this project is not dependent at all on the organic diversion project. And so we think there's a great opportunity to look at maybe co-locating the digester and the landfill gas. I mean, we've done it in other location.
Right.
Our technology can do it. This will limit the number of electrical and gas interconnection that's required. You will have only one upgrading equipment. So there's a lot of benefit, I think, for
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
But, One option at some point was to say to go out there and go to where they had planned to have the sorting facility. It sounds like that's just not possible, and so we're not dependent on the diversion program at all. That's not part of the plan.
Well, obviously, it's, if it fails to launch, that keeps the gas supply at Short Mountain a little firmer than what we've been anticipating.
Yeah, and then that's the case. We think we have to revisit the capacity of the Waggabox we're looking to install. It would be more like a 2,000 SCFM than a 1,500 SCFM that we need to look at installing, but
Once the Irish deal is dead.
And we're certainly willing to talk to the county if this site they have doesn't work out. I think there really are some opportunities there to work together, so.
We've made that clear to
Yeah.
them for decades, literally. They just haven't always been willing.
I have one more question, and then I'll
Yeah.
be quiet. Your 700 gallons a day of liquid effluent, whatever you call it. You would make some agreement with, hopefully with the county to just dispose of it with their liquids. Is that?
yeah, that's the most practical solution, because the condensate that comes from after drying the gas is actually it's leachate, right? It is actually water that came from the landfill initially, and so you expect it's the same composition. We're not adding any chemical during this process. It's a chemical-free process. There's really no addition of any external chemicals, so the composition is the same as the leachate that the landfill is already dealing with. So I think the most economical solution is to return it back to the landfill, and then they can deal with it and deal with the LNG. That's the assumption we took so far.
I have a question. Does RNG command a premium price in the marketplace over normal gas?
It is.
The reason I'm asking is, we go from, we're producing about 3.2 megawatts of power. To go from producing that much power to consuming 2 megawatts of power, there's quite of energy negative on that, that has to be made up for by the value of the gas that's being
Yeah.
produced.
So, and that's really the story here when we start to talk to other parties about this, talk about it in public. We do need revenue to cover the replacement energy that we need to buy to continue to serve our customers. And so part of this is giving us that value to be able to do that.
Really, we're gonna have to recover over 5 megawatts to come out even,
Well, yeah, I mean,
add their load to the
we'll,
rest.
hopefully we can serve them at cost, so it's not a net negative on us, but still, yes, it's a big
Well, I
swing.
assume there'd be a decent price band in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we do need to find that much more power to make up the difference.
Our plan is to purchase the power from Emerald.
Understood, yeah.
Can I ask what the impact to your pro forma would be if politics starts to degrade the environmental attributes?
Yeah, so we look at this impact, of course, when we are doing our sensitivity analysis on agro projects. So maybe I can take a step back. We haven't talked too much about how we're going to sell the gas. So maybe I can go through that and we'll talk about what if. So most, if not close to all of the RNG that's produced in the USA is sold under a program which is called the Renewable Fuel Standard. It's the ethanol, mainly ethanol support program, and renewable natural gas entered this program in about 2014. So landfill gas turned into renewable natural gas is eligible to produce RIN credits, or renewable identification number, that is then sold to be dispensed as compressed natural gas. So it's used for transportation, right? So renewable natural gas then is basically displacing compressed natural gas to be used as transportation. And so this RIN credits are purchased by oil and gas refiners, importers, producers that are mandated by the EPA to purchase a volume of RIN to fulfill their mandate obligation. This program has been in place since 2005 to 2014, RNG made its entrance into the program and has basically gone through several administration and has stayed strong, right? And why that is because it's mostly supporting, farmers growing and producer of ethanol, right? And the plan for the Short Mountain landfill is to sell to a fixed off-taker 70% of our production. And so that would be very likely outside of the RFS program. Why that is? Because in Oregon, there's actually a mandate, which is renewable natural gas. So there's a lot of optionality here in Oregon to be selling a portion at a discount, of course, to be selling a portion of the renewable natural gas. And then the rest, the remaining 30%, because there's a lot of upside in participating in the renewable fuel standard, will be sold as a biofuel. So we will be locking 70% of this value. So that means that for the next 20 years, regardless of politics, the value of this RNG will be firm, right? Typically, we'll negotiate a fixed price with an escalator. And then the remaining 30%, yeah, they will be up and down. And that's one of the scenario will be presented to you as we are finalizing our due diligence, is what happened if the RIN, typically we look at a historic low of $1.50. It has been the lowest 12 months average in the history of the program. And then we look at a high last year, $3.70. And then we run those scenarios so that you can see how sensitive our model is to fluctuation. And then we also look at, okay, is this a strong project? Is this a viable project? And they're like a worst case scenario.
So
It satisfies me.
that means 30% of your production you expect to be more profitable, but also more volatile in price.
Yes, yeah. And we, depending on where we land with the fixed offtake, purchaser, we'll also discuss together, okay, is this better to fix a larger portion or a smaller portion? Typically, we fix, in all of our projects, we fix between 50% to 75%. And that has to do with the profile of the project and the offtake price that we can secure. And we'll make that decision together. But yeah, that's, it creates a lot of upside for us. It creates a little bit of volatility, but not to a level where it's actually going to impact too much the cash flow profile.
So if you have a 1500 SCFM program and the load the supply of gas starts to increase and we aren't able to use enough of it, at what point do you make the decision to invest in more equipment to up your capacity? Would you have to flare temporarily until you get up the capacity? So is there any fudge factor built in, I mean?
Yeah, so in this one, actually, it's pretty easy because the 1500 SCFM really has the footprint of a 2000 SCFM. So what it means for us is to add more membrane. So the 1500.
Not a major addition.
It's not, but then for us, it goes in increments of 1000 SCFM. So we typically, contractually, the way we like to address it is we have threshold of 750 SCFM for us to say, okay, for the past 9 months, we've been seeing like 750 SCFM of additional volume. Then we would offer like a use it or lose it clause. Basically, we just say, okay, you have those gas rights for this entire gas production. But if you don't use it, excess gas after 9 months, then you lose it.
Right.
And then you can do whatever you want with it. But typically we would add a container and expand the facility. I mean, that would be the most logical thing to do.
At a much quicker rate, you can upgrade that than what initial.
Yeah, and the unit price, like it's
Right. So the more it produces, the better for you in terms of economics.
No, absolutely. A lot of the activities we have on the due diligence right now, on our due diligence list, is to understand better the biogas production in light of diversion, organic diversion, and then make sure that we're sizing the facility correctly from the get-go.
Earlier, Chad was informing us of the unique Oregon rules that were passed by executive order. There was an initial phase of it that was challenged in court, found to be unlawful, and then now back as a version 2. But the crux of it is it incentivizes off-takers and folks that are producing carbon to purchase renewable natural gas. It's a major incentive factor to cause them to do that. So we do have some unique opportunities here in the state because of the regime that we're currently operating.
Unka.
We're special. Well, if there's no other questions, I guess just from here, so these guys are on site again tomorrow, so we'll be talking more about some of the contracting. They'll be actually going out to the landfill to check out where we're potentially looking to site the thing. And then I think next week we also have some meetings set up to talk with SCS and some other part. SCS is our engineering consultant that did our gas collection system master plan.
What time are you going out to the landfill tomorrow?
I think it's in the morning, sorry.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, 8 o'clock, something like that, yeah. So this will continue, we have notified the county that, we've chosen Waga as a partner, and we had some email back and forth on Friday with them about their interest in this, and I expect those conversations to move forward productively, and really.
Shosky,
This was with Dan. I've talked with both Steve and Dan, yeah. But I think if you look at this package that's been presented to us, whether it's along the environmental front, the economic front, or, just the good of the community, there is too much benefit here not to have everybody agree to move forward. And ultimately, the county's gonna make their own decision, but I think we're presenting them with a very strong package. And again, I think at some point, all three of us just need to sit down and work out what this looks like, because there's just too much at stake here, so. Yeah.
One question, so the county proposing through Volcan, like they do I think it's like a dry digester system. Do they have to do as much cleanup at the end of that process? In other words, could that cleanup part of the gas?
Yeah. So digester gas in general is much less complex than landfill gas. You don't have all of the pollutants, and you mostly don't have air intrusion in the digester as a waterproof, airproof container. So if you can upgrade a more complex gas, you can upgrade the less complex gas. So with just a membrane, we can remove the CO2 that will be contained in the digester gas. So we could imagine where you have the landfill on one end, you have the digester on the other end. Both would have landfill gas interconnection inlet of the facility. We would meter the energy in for both the landfill and the digester separately, and then the gas will just be processed in the very same facility to be turned into RNG. So yeah, that's absolutely possible.
I'm most impressed with the written material that you provided.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not that I understood.
Yeah, but I think you did from the questions. Yeah.
You guys did all this in 10 years? You did all this in 10 years? Grew this big?
I didn't personally, but yeah, the company did.
It's
You
impressive.
guys started out at Air Liquide, which is
Yeah,
a
so
major multinational.
So the project was born inside Air Liquide, and so our founders are really passionate about the gas industry, passionate about having an impact on limiting greenhouse gas, and so if they basically stumbled upon this problem, which was how do we safely and efficiently upgrade landfill gas into RNG, and actually everything was right there at their fingertip, because Air Liquide is the champion in membrane filtration and the champion in cryogenic distillation. What they did is basically put two and two together, had the idea, and then it was decided within Air Liquide that it was best if the idea was spinned off into a separate company. And Air Liquide today is still our #1 investor. They still own 14% of the company. But sometimes those projects are better on their own in a maybe more agile organization. And yeah.
Where are most of your investors from? If they only have 14%.
Yeah, so we're a publicly listed company.
Okay.
And so most of our investors are actually, our historical investors are in Europe. And then 30% of our stock is owned by folks like you and I.
I still don't know how to invest in the euro. It's not on my fidelity.
Yeah, right.
No, you gotta, Hopefully you don't need
that.
Yeah.
I'm not here to make that investment advice.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been most impressed by is just their an open book, and they've been sharing a lot of information. Some of this, obviously about their company ordinarily would not be super comfortable to talk about, and they've just never had a problem doing that. So it makes us feel better as a partner, really. So appreciate you guys doing it. Well, I think that's what we got. Any other questions? Oh, Ron, is that okay?
I was just curious, as the dump expands, because more volume can come in, do you have a plan to collect more gas or put in more wells or what?
Yeah. You want to do that one first?
Yeah, so as waste comes into the cells, essentially, over time, the garbage that's in there will stop producing methane. So as long as they're consistently putting in, 200, 150,000 tons, whatever it is per year, their gas flow is predominantly going to stay pretty consistent over time. But as Tungi was mentioning, we are designing a 1500 SCFM facility that we can add a membrane to fairly easily and increase the flow acceptance to 2,000.
I think we should go see the plant in France.
South of France, you want to go see?
Yeah, let's go look at it.
What's it near? Where is it near in the southern France?
The headquarters?
Yeah.
Is in Grenoble,
Okay.
by the Alps, but our facilities are like across the country. New York is probably an easier, not as fun, but
Not as fun.
Pretty soon, California, that'll be close.
the closest one actually is gonna be coming online, well, it actually just came online last month in British Columbia, in the island of, in Victoria,
Ooh,
Vancouver Island.
That is
wow,
close.
that's,
Beautiful city.
Yeah, it's wonderful, yeah.
We'll keep the board posted, obviously, as we go through this process, and you'll be the ultimate authority in terms of what we sign up for and don't sign up for, so.
thanks for the presentation. It's really
Thanks so much.
excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Really excellent.
Take a short break maybe if you want before executive session.
Yes.
I'll have to down this one.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's right there. Yeah, it's good. We have you start again, I'm sorry, just for this evening.
You're not recording, right?
We just wanted to record going into it, is that okay?
Got it.
Yeah,
You're right.
okay.
The title.
If you could start one more time, Kurt, sorry.
Okay. Emerald PUD will now meet in executive session. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.1660, parentheses 2F, which allows a governing body to meet in executive session to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will reconvene the board work session. We're now back in public session. The next item of agendas are BPA product. Over.
Yeah, so we didn't plan to really spend any time on this, just wanted to keep the conversation moving forward. With the provider of choice process with BPA. Most of the materials were really for background reading as we start talking more about the terms that we're going to be facing. Rob's on here, he can correct me if I say anything wrong, but we provided just a basic overview of Slice. We went through, you know, kind of the load following product and this basic comparison between the two. You know, we'll preface this by saying we don't have access to the Slice product initially because of our product switch, so this becomes a much different conversation than we would have had moving forward. If I just go to the punchline here, so the way that this is going to play out is we initially had to have a product decision, I think by June, is that right, Rob?
Yeah, June is the June 15th, I think is the date.
Hey, I'm liking that eye.
Looking a little better.
Sorry, Rob.
I'm sure that never gets old.
I apologize for
I was waiting for the reaction as soon as I turned the camera on.
Need an eye patch.
You need to turn your head to the right, so we don't have to.
We're not helping it. Hey.
It's not that bad. Not that bad. Yeah, but I think that's the, I mean, we're planning on a couple of other engagements over the next couple of months to get into some of the high level contract language. We're not going to go, you know, section by section, I don't think, unless you guys want to take a look at these new contracts. But I think it would be worth at least highlighting some of the structure of these agreements and kind of what they look like and the high level things that they cover. Some of the new things that we expect, you know, that cover things like, you know, West Coast market integration, you know, whenever that is expected to happen, what will happen to the different products, timeline, environmental attributes has really been a big deal. What is the value of the Bonneville system and the clean power that we all pay for? Things like that we can highlight, but hoping to get a kind of a request for a contract from the board, some sort of authorization for the GM to request a contract from Bonneville by kind of May, June timeframe. And so that's the process. You have to like say, Bonneville, I want this contract, and then they give it to you, and then we come back and sign it.
And they're sticking to that June date for product choice.
Yeah, there's a couple of other utilities that have already started to make noise that they need more time. They would like to. There's a lot of uncertainty still for them, and they've got a process that will require more time. And Bonneville is being, I feel like if we felt like we needed more time, I should probably tell our Bonneville at this point. But I think I think we'll be okay with the timeline that they've laid out. I think there are some utilities that are deciding between slice block and block basically, and there's some other details that still need to be worked out with those products.
So really, for me, the product choice comes down to are we so concerned about independence from BPA that we're willing to move back to a riskier model like we've had with Slice? We're moving to load following consciously to get away from that. If we take a longer term horizon, does the board really care about independence from BPA? If so, that would cause us to look at something other than load following.
And I would say it's independence specific to resource decisions. You know, we're as a full load follower, full requirements customer Bonneville, we're saying that all of our load growth is we're just going to tie to tier 2, and we're just going to pay the bill basically, and that's okay. That's definitely, you know, that is definitely one approach, but you know, there are others that still value the independence and to be able to make their own resource decisions. I feel like over the last couple of years, you know, we've tried to test the waters for new resources, and that culminated in the decision to switch products. So I think that's where we're at today. But the longer term, there still will be options to switch products in the new contract. And so if things fundamentally change for resource availability, or advanced nuclear comes on strong in the early 2030s, let's say, there'll be other chances to change products at that time.
And we're not seeing anything in the energy space that tells us that making the switch to load following is a bad decision.
I think the opposite. If anything, things have become more difficult to develop in this environment. until they get that figured out, there's just not much that's a
Grid can
small
stay
utility
up.
like us can do.
Beyond what our scope is, I
Yeah.
think.
There's people trying, PNGC is, you know, the big conglomerate over all the co-ops, they're talking big about developing resources, we'll see if it actually happens.
I mean, we're essentially a retailer. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
You can, I see the Harbor Freight advertisements where they manufacture the tools.
Yeah.
And then market them and they take a middle guy. Well, okay, that takes it.
Yeah,
Well, get me an SMR, and we'll take out the middle guy
Right,
too.
Yeah.
yeah, so, and, yeah, I think,
yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, that's kind of
I
what we
haven't seen
keep down.
anything out there that's gonna be less expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right now it's all new renewables and storage.
Well, and a quick comment, that storage down in California there by Castroville, still offline, the whole thing.
It's still on fire.
Well, no, but
We got it
the
out.
whole thing shut down till they figure out exactly what happened and why, so count on it, how?
Yep.
You know, are we up to that kind of risk? I'm not.
No, our approach really since the ice storm, maybe before that, has kind of been to refocus on our core business and load following
Yeah.
is part of that. Short Mountain, new route out there is part of that, and it would feel like a departure if we went back and now said, hey, we're gonna go find resources again.
Yeah, so why did you even ask that question?
We have to. We want this to be a thorough
Well, if
process.
we have opportunity windows 5 and 6 years down the road, I'd say we sit tight for now and worry about.
We will have another bite at it too, so that's important.
Isn't it 3 years out after this?
I think that's what.
Like 31 or something we have.
It's 31. Yeah, 31 is the first opportunity to switch. It's three years after first delivery under the new
Look
contract.
at the world in 31.
Maybe PNGC's, figures it out and they offer us a share at that point, we can look at it.
Yeah, and there's nothing to.
Block shaping that's off the table.
Yeah, block, so we can do, I think we have some more analysis around block, I'll let Rob share that, but it does not look a lot different than slice at the end of the day is kind of where we came down. There's still a lot of market exposure and it doesn't necessarily provide much benefit on top of it, so. Rob, you wanted to expand?
It would be the block with shaping, so the ability to kind of shape the amount that we get from Bonneville to meet our peak loads. It has some promise, but it really still, at the end of the day, we've got a significant amount of above high water mark loads, and it's never going to meet all of that energy need. So the advantage of that is if we were to be able to combine with other utilities on that same product and take advantage of some diversity in loads and other resources that these other utilities might bring to the table. That's part of that whole IDEA group, the Idaho Energy Authority group, and the kind of initial analysis has not been super convincing that there's a lot of value there, and a lot of those utilities are pretty wishy-washy about their decision at this point, and I think a lot of them are probably going to go load following. It would be my guess at this point. But that whole process still, I think there's one more big meeting and kind of the last part of this month that where everybody finally gets their full cards on the table and decides whether that thing is going to be viable or not. But really, what you get from that is access to the ability to develop your own resources and the ability to interface with the new markets that are developing. As a load follower, you're really shielded from those markets by Bonneville, and so you're relying on Bonneville to make those decisions for you in that marketplace, and that should be fine. We think, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, right, exactly, but you just don't have that same kind of independence that other utilities are looking for.
So we've got placeholders on several upcoming meetings to talk more about this new contract. This was just kind of keeping the conversation going, letting you know where we're at from the staff's point of view on the product. And we're not seeing anything that would cause us to shift course at this point.
Yeah. I'll share too that we're kind of watching what are the other bigger utilities, consumer utilities looking at. We already know that Clark and Snohomish have switched products, and they'll start as load followers in the next contracts too. We expect, and I feel like the winds are also blowing for eWeb in that direction. They've got a much more quantitative based approach to this whole analysis, and they're showing that load following is much cheaper for them overall. We'll see if some of the qualitative stuff weighs more favorably for a different product selection, but I thought that was interesting too. I think a lot of people are seeing the value in having your capacity issues dealt with the Bonneville product, load following product.
It's been a slicer from the very beginning back in 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have to work that out. I don't know how that even works
Yeah,
out.
how do they integrate all that? Yeah,
Good question.
It's a big deal.
thank God it's not our problem.
We got other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the quick update on BPA. We'll talk more about it next month.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Keep eyes on that.
Single beam.
Next item, general manager performance review process.
Okay, this is Alicia's item.
Okay. So this is just a check-in because we are trying to make sure that we complete the evaluation process in time with what the policy is requiring of us, which I believe is the end of April. And
Your slides.
yeah, if you want to
Oh,
hold
wow,
on.
here you go.
So what I want to do is check in with the board to make sure we're okay with the process, the template, and the timeline. So that's essentially what we're trying to accomplish today. So this is the timeline. The process, let me take a minute to explain that, especially because Dale, you're new to this. And so what we established a couple of years ago was this template, which I emailed out, that has multiple categories to evaluate performance. But the process for that is first we have the GM complete a self-evaluation with those same categories. So he goes in, states how he feels he's performing on those, and provides any documentation he feels is necessary to demonstrate that. Then we also had senior staff go in and do an evaluation on those same categories, not a rating, but just completed comments for each of those categories to give you some perspective, an additional perspective, I would say. Yeah, so those two things are completed. I take those in, compile all the results of the senior staff comments, take the self-evaluation that Kyle completes, and then present it to the board. The board then has the opportunity to review all of that information, and then they complete their own evaluation. So each one of you would complete your own using the information that was provided and your knowledge and observation of the performance of the last year. You would complete it again on the exact same category. So everybody's using the same categories and evaluate. When everybody is done with the evaluations, then I take all of those, compile it, come up with the average score for each one, and compile all of the comments and provide one final review that reflects all of the board's opinions and the scores. That is then, we like to give you a chance to look at it, talk amongst yourselves, right? Because you're doing these evaluations individually, so there's an opportunity for you to talk, make sure that you're good with it. Then there's an opportunity to actually deliver that performance review to Kyle. Then there's an opportunity to determine if there's any compensation changes. So that's the process high level. Timeline wise, what we've got is the first two steps would be having senior staff and the GM complete the evaluation. So the template that I emailed out was just to say, are we okay with these categories and continuing to evaluate on these? Which sounds like everybody was okay with that. So then the next piece is, if the schedule looks okay, we'll go ahead and get the senior staff evaluations and Kyle's self-evaluation over to the board by next Tuesday. That then gives you time to review and complete your individual response by Thursday, March 20th. That gives me time, a week, to gather everything, compile everything, and send it right back out to you. I believe that March 27th, I think, aligns with the day we'd be sending out a board packet, if I remember right. And then we would have an executive session on the Tuesday, April 1st meeting, where you can discuss the results. And then in the Tuesday, April 15th meeting, executive session to actually give Kyle the performance review. You would have to then come out of executive session to discuss and decide on anything for compensation. That cannot be an executive session. So, but that would get everything all done Right, yeah, so as we establish this each year, we're getting it done a little bit sooner and sooner, but the piece I'm striving for now is any compensation changes. If we can get that decided in April, it's easier for us to implement than try to go back and backdate changes. And so that's why we're kind of adjusting it and making it a slightly different timeline than we have
Quick
done in the past
request,
years.
could you supply us with compensation data from other GMs?
Absolutely.
That'd be helpful to know where we've guessed things have changed.
Yeah. Salary data, some of, it kind of varies when you have salary, data, it's a snapshot in time. So I will put on there what approximate time frame the data was collected, just so you have an idea on that. So, but I can send that out at the same time I'm sending the,
Yeah.
what is it, the March 20th, where you're,
Yeah, the
or excuse me, March 27th, when I'm sending back the combined results from the board. I can
That
put
would be
in there.
helpful,
Okay.
very much.
So is there a conflict of interest? He used to be my boss.
Now you're his boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
So,
Just, that's a serious question. I
We can
mean,
ask that.
is
We
there
can
another board that has an employee on it? Another PUD
Yes,
that- oh, yeah.
yes.
Just a question, I mean, it might be.
We can always run it by chat to be safe.
But you're probably right, it's okay to ask.
I have a question regarding email. Rob, are you the one to ask this? How safe is our email from spying? I'm led to believe that email is, don't tell anything in email, you don't tell the whole world. We trade a lot of stuff around
Yeah,
in this organization. Do we need to have better security on that?
so we're actually fortunate in the last few years, we moved our email from an on-prem server up to Office 365 in the cloud. Way safer than it would be.
So it's not going through a normal mail carrier then?
So so Microsoft hosts our email. They have kind of, the gold standard in terms of physical security, operational security.
I see.
Microsoft hosts email for government entities,
Okay, I understand.
military.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What we used to call Microsoft Exchange.
Yeah, so Exchange is just the product, and so
Okay.
it used to be on-prem here. I would actually say it would be more at risk hosting it here, right? Just because we don't have the facilities or the budget or
I'm
the skill
thinking,
set.
curious in my own business, or careful in my own business about what we share in open emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think Kyle might be able to speak to this more than I can. I think the piece that we have to be mindful about in regards to this process is anything regarding compensation.
Yeah, that all has to be public.
Yeah.
So,
Understood.
Yeah.
That's.
Cool.
So any questions about the process or any concerns with the process, the timeline?
Go forth and get them rolling, girl.
Okay,
How about you, Dan? You got any
Where's
questions?
this going to be at?
I read through what.
it's in the cover letter.
I'm pretty straightforward.
It's a
The,
2 month
the board-
evaluation.
Oh, it's in the packet?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just print that out.
Unless I want to incorporate 30 years.
I'll just print it out over on my office.
This was on his conflict or potential.
Oh,
Because
Because he
you're not,
used to work
you're
with just-
not an employee now,
I know, but
Only if he had the
he-
board.
I used to work for him,
right?
and now I'm gonna do an evaluation of him.
Yeah.
Just no different than if I can't vote on any of the medical stuff.
Your chance to get even.
I think this is, I mean, it's completely severed that relationship now, so I think it's totally fine, but we'll look into it just to be safe.
If the voters didn't trust your judgment, they wouldn't have
Yeah.
voted for you.
And this is gonna be a 2 month
Well,
evaluation.
I hope
What-
these are very good boss evaluations, didn't
One of the options, when we
Payback's a big.
when we look into it, one of the options could be if for some reason there is some concern, he could complete the same version that the senior staff does, which there's no scoring, just comments.
Sure.
So that could allow you to contribute to the
Chances
process.
are there isn't, but
Never hurts to be
we
safe.
I
have
think
to
it's
look,
great
we
to
have
ask,
to
yeah.
ask.
I think,
Yeah.
again, we need to navigate it
Okay.
correctly, so.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
saying the right name, we've got the right numbers when we go into an executive session now, so we've improved.
Oh, yeah. This process is way better than it ever was. I mean, I really appreciate you doing this. It's
Yeah.
helpful for me and. I get it.
Charles kickstarted us
Yeah.
back here, was it 2 years ago, Charles? Like, it's time to get this done.
Well,
on
we
time.
were,
Yeah.
we were not doing our job.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, Charles.
Yep.
And if now with, I think, now that we've got a couple years under us, I think this is the timeline that we would be using moving
Yeah.
forward, instead of trying to scramble and get it done right at the end of April and then doing compensation after that. Start working on it much sooner to then get it all completed and wrapped up in April. All right, that's all I have.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Kurt, is
public comment. We,
Yeah, no way.
wait. Nope, that was quick. So you can adjourn.
Right on time.
Get your banger out.
All right.
Officially, it's good.
Those are some meaty topics. Thank you for sticking that.